Bobby, put the magazine away, will you? Pay attention. And they only get one crack at this.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Unfiltered Gamer Kickstarter board game review. Today's game up on the tabletop, Rambo the board game. Rambo the board game is made by Everything Epic, and it plays 1 to 4 players. Takes about half an hour to maybe an hour and a half to play a scenario. And in the preview copy I got 3 different scenarios, in which you'll probably be getting more if you back this game. The game is literally Rambo. You're going to be playing as the theme as you're in the jungle. You're going to different base camps, rescuing people, trying to defeat bosses and other different elite characters. They're usually going to be like commanders and sergeants. And there's also this fog of war. As you go from each different tile to a new tile, you're going to be drawing new cards to represent different enemies that will be moving around, as well as bad things happening. You'll be able to choose different stances. Do you want to run? Do you want to walk? Do you need to stand up? Or do you want to just go ahead and crawl in your prone position as a sniper? Each character has their own uniqueness to them. Rambo's kind of more like going around and slashing and stuff like that. Then you have something like Shiryu Wayu. I can't say his name correctly, but he's more of the prone guy. He's got all the camo gear on, and he's more bent on just shooting people from very far away. And they all have their own uniqueness to them. And you can play by yourself or with up to 3 other players as you're going around in this cooperative game to defeat specific missions that are based on the story of Rambo. Anyway, let me go ahead and show you what it looks like and give you an idea of the game.
Nothing we can do.
So here we have the game Rambo, and as you can see, there's quite a lot of components, and I'm going to go over them before we start how you play a turn. And as you can see, you got your 4 standees that represent all 4 characters. These are the character boards, and this is the map overlay. Obviously, for each unique scenario, there's going to be other map pieces you'll be using, and as you can see, there's a plethora of different things, as well as 4 other maps. And like I said, though, this is a preview copy, so there's probably going to be more in your copy. There's going to be stuff like barbed wire, as well as deployment areas for enemies. And then you've got shacks over here. These cards over here represent fog of war, and you're going to be shuffling them down based on what they are. So these are like the shack tiles here, and you'll be revealing them. It shows building number 2 and what happens. When you go ahead and set the board up, you're going to be placing these guys down like this, and you're going to shuffle them randomly. And when you walk in to these certain areas on the board, you flip it over and see where the enemies are based on where you moved into them. Also, too, like I didn't show you guys, this little shack here, this is actually going to be placed right here, just so you can see it represents the area in which your guys are going to be walking into, and what different scenarios are going to be affected by the different placements. Deployment is extra enemies will spawn as the time progresses throughout the game. Over here is our mission and our objective and whatnot, and each single mission is going to come with a plethora of different cards and stuff like that. So, and it tells you exactly how to set up the first mission, which is really nice. A tutorial mission that not only includes all the stuff you need for it, but also how you set up rules card 1, 2, 3, the mission objective explanation, how fog of war works, covering cover spaces and hazards. And on the board, you're going to see these spaces here represent cover. Over here, these are all the different cards for enemies. You have enemy A all the way to the final enemy, which is E, and they're all different for all the different scenarios. For instance, this one here for A is just raising the alarm, but as you raise the alarm based on who is seen from cover or not from cover, you'll be increasing the amount of people that are deployed. You've got bodyguards and sweeper patrol, elite fighters, and then Officer Din here, and he's basically the guy you need to beat at the end of the game. Also, over here, as you can see, for the best of your ability, that depending on the guys you're fighting, you're going to be putting down 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There might be 5 different D characters, and they're going to take damage separately, so it's a nice way of showing damage affecting different AI. So maybe for the first AI is taking 2, and the second is taking 1. You'll be using these standees here, and they're going to be represented with C, B, D, A, so on and so forth. However, there might be miniatures in the game. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but stretch goals, you know, basic miniature game. These are the wound tokens, which you'll be taking damage throughout the game, and when you take a certain amount of damage, this says 5, 6, 8, and 6. When you take that damage, you're then going to have to place a wounded marker on the first space, covering them up slowly until finally all of the wounds have been tallied, and you've got your entire character wounded. He's dead. That will end the game no matter what. You don't want to have any of your characters die, so be aware of that. You got prisoner war tokens, you got traps. All of these things are going to represent the different tokens you'll be getting that are going to help you throughout the game, and you'll be doing them based on how you're standing, or if you're prone, or if this character running and standing, and so on and so forth. The health tokens, like I said, this big knife here is going to be used as a first player token, which will probably be in more cardboard as opposed to this type of material. And the threat deck, which you'll be flipping over and seeing what happens, and it's going to show you what enemies are going to be moving and what occurs throughout the game, which is pretty cool, pretty interesting. And then you've got your tactics cards, as well as your different items you'll be using. For each character, they're going to have tactics, as well as what you're going to be able to do with them based on your actions. And as you beat the missions, you're going to be able to get new tactics cards as well. Right here you can get ammo belts. This is a gun and run, and this is a Reign of Fury, and it's going to be for different characters. So as you go through each scenario, you'll be able to upgrade and improve your characters, or at least just change them. And that is pretty much the complete contents of what I have. However, there might be more when you back the game and it gets sent to you. So on your turn, you're going to be selecting a leader, as well as everybody's going to select a stance, as well as a tactical card. That tactical card can either be discarded for momentum, or you can use that on your turn. You just select it before you go ahead and use it. Sometimes you'll be able to use them, sometimes you probably won't. Some of them are reactions, and other of them are more of things you can do on your turn, or even passive abilities. When you use a threat card, it's gone until you're able to replace it, or take it back from the discard pile, basically. Also, a threat card is going to be drawn after everybody's selected all these things, and then for each player, that threat card's going to be drawn, and something's going to happen. Maybe it'll say something negative, as well as A units, B units, and C units are going to move. You're going to follow the actions for all the different units that are AI based on the rules, and then you're going to be able to use your character. Your character might have movement, it might have actions, might be able to shoot a certain amount of times, and it might be able to place traps or gain new momentum, and there's different types of momentum throughout the game. And you're always going to be hitting in this game, so you're always going to be doing damage to each other, and you're always going to do at least one. Armor is going to negate attack to a certain extent, though, and your objective is always going to be different for different scenarios. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a basic idea of a couple turns, or maybe just a turn here, and so you get an idea of how the game is going to function and what the idea, what you're like trying to do to the best of your ability in the game, and how difficult it just might be. Okay, so back to Rambo now, and as you can see, we're going to go ahead and pick our leader, and that will be Rambo himself. We're only going to be showing you how Rambo is going to be taking his turns, because we don't need to show you everybody, just so you get a good sense of the game. As you can see over here, you've got his equipment to start with, as well as his tactics to start with. He's going to be able to choose the turn order, as well as everybody's going to choose a tactic to use, and there's different ones. This one says when you enter cover this round, you don't have to roll the hazard die, because when you go into cover, sometimes you're going to be affected by the die, and it could be negatively affecting you, making maybe taking damage and whatnot. But either way, that's the one you can use. This is placing a trap in a space on your area or an adjacent area. Your traps are going to deal an extra damage this round, and this one over here gives you an armor this round, and at the end of the round, you give yourself 2 health, so it's pretty cool as well. So if I were to choose maybe this one here, I could also instead use these, and maybe I choose this one here. I can actually get rid of it and get a momentum piece here, which is going to be this little knife here. And why is that important? Well, momentum is really relevant in this game, because you can have a super special ability here called Unstoppable. If you have 4 knives, you're able to do this once per mission, or basically once a game, and you, instead of being killed or wounded, so taking one of these wounded tokens, you will instead actually heal 6, which is really, really cool, and it doesn't make you lose these. They're not sacrificed for that, but you only do it once. You're also going to have an activated ability here. This thing here means that it's an action, and this means you need a momentum, and if you use both, it says if you have 1 survival momentum token, you may use an action to add a trap to a space in your area. Pretty sweet. And survivalist means their traps are always going to do an extra damage, and hazards will always do 1 less damage to you. So that's also cool when going into cover. So Rambo's good at being hidden as well as dropping traps. And he's got 4 different stances here: run, stand, crouch, and prone. This little symbol here means you're going to move the alert track here. This means you're going to be able to move 5 spaces. This is how many actions you'll be taking, which is generally going to consist of your different armor and stuff like that. Like this says attack with this weapon, and this says attack with this weapon. It costs a bullet. And then you're going to be getting momentum. So if I chose run, that would be what I would get here. Also, there's obviously the 2 different momentums here. This will make you move 3 and stand, and it's going to only cost you 2. It's going to only give you 2 actions, so it's less stuff here than it is here. but that's because this one's going to cause the alert meter to go up. Alert meter is really irrelevant as well. Whenever you're green, you're hidden and nobody can see you, which means when enemies activate, they don't hurt you. And if everybody's hidden, the enemies don't come after you, which is pretty cool. This means in the yellow here that if you are in one of these locations here, then people can't see you. However, if you're anywhere else, they can, and up here means you're fully visible no matter where you are. And also bad things can happen, like with this raise the alarm. If an A activates, it'll tell you each hero is going to increase their alert meter over here, and for each person in the red area, you have to add an enemy to the deployment area, which is over here, so that's not very good. And then if the Officer Din is revealed, then you activate all B enemies as well, so that's pretty scary there whenever A is on the whenever A triggers. Not to mention, but there's also Crouch, which is going to let you refresh cards whenever you use one of these guys here, either discarding them for their momentum or to use their ability. Then you can refresh it and get a new one back that you had already spent. And this is a trap. This is armor that you have for the entire turn, so you'll take 1 less damage, as well as -2 from this meter over here, which is useful as well. So depending on what you want to do is what's going to happen in the game. Everybody's going to be able to decide that. After they've all chosen that, then you're going to flip over one of these threat cards here from the threat deck, and it'll tell you what enemies activate, but first it'll tell you what happens. Increase your alert by 1, and then each red hero adds a C enemy to the space in their area. So that's pretty nasty. But at the beginning of the game, it doesn't really matter all that much. And then you're going to be able to move. And so Rambo is right here, and he can move. Maybe if he chose, I don't know, we'll just say he chose to stand up. So he'll get his momentum, which is a knife here. Put it over there. He's going to get to move 3 and have 2 actions. So he would move 1, 2, 3, we'll say. Whenever somebody goes into a space that has that fog of war, kind of like StarCraft and Warcraft and all that, you're going to flip this thing over. It's going to say where you entered from, and that's that little red symbol right there. And then tell you what it does. Each enemy in this area moves towards the closest red hero. Well, nobody's in red, so that's not too bad. But you're going to have a B, C, and a D AI that's going to come out, and it tells you on the card where they go. Just like that, and there's the C here. Nice and easy. This goes away. You're not going to need that anymore. And then whenever these things trigger based on the threat deck, they're going to come after you. He's going to be able to use his actions as well if he can or wants to. And so he has obviously 2 actions. He can remove a weapon, what's this one here? A bullet, as well as an action, because he has 2, and he could shoot somebody with his weapon, and it'll tell him, how far it is, how many people it hits, the damage it deals, and then whether or not he has to move up his alert track or not. So that's important there. If he's close to somebody, he's able to use his weapon here, and it'll do damage. So let's say he actually had one of these bullets here, right? He would have to subtract this, as well as use one of his actions, and then he can attack players. So he gets to hit 3 different targets at 1 range. That's what it is. So he can hit 3 different targets. So he could hit all 3 of these guys, or one guy 3 times, however he wants to do it. It says 2 damage, and you have to look at each individual card here. So if I looked over here at the C character, and this way was the C one, it tells you also the range of him, how many targets he hits, how much damage, movement, his armor, as well as his health here. And also tells you what happens when he activates. And some of them actually have passive abilities, like if they're next to each other, they're going to boost each other's defense, which is kind of cool for the guards, but also kind of nasty for us. So like this bodyguards here, he says if he is adjacent, enemies get +1 armor, so he has +1 armor. So when Rambo hits him, he can hit him 3 times if he wants. It would do 2, 4, 6 damage, and this guy here has 4 health. However, he's going to reduce 1 damage for each time he hits, putting it at 3 damage. So he would actually still stay alive. The 3 damage will go on to the C1, because there's only 1 C enemy right now, and if he takes 1 more damage, he's going to die. The next player would get to go. He would do all the same things, as well as reveal the threat deck, and then the A, B, and C would trigger. This says lose a momentum token if you have no momentum tokens, and then or you can suffer 2 damage instead, which is also not very good for us as heroes. There's no A's, but that doesn't matter because it's the raise the alarm, and everybody would go up 1. And then B, it would trigger this guy here. It tells you kind of what he does. So this guy here, let's see. He says moves to the closest player that is revealed or in red, attack the closest revealed hero, and then move towards the nearest enemy. So he kind of goes up, shoots, and then he kind of comes back because he wants to be next to his units, so that way he can give them that boost. And it would work the same way in combat as well. And C would also follow along with the same aspects. The game is going to continue just like that. Sometimes you're going to be deploying enemies here based on the triggered alarm area over here. as well as getting these this raise the alarm thing aspect here. Once you go over to one of these locations for this specific scenario, flip it over and you'll find either, I think this is the abandoned munitions building, and this happens to be the boss. And in this specific scenario, it tells you what you need to do. The officer is one of the buildings. Flip this card when the officer is defeated, and then you're going to read and see what happens. I don't want to ruin it for you, but you get the idea. Going across, you can't go past barbed wire, so this kind of tells you the way in which you're going to have to be walking, and you don't know which building is going to be which, so you might get lucky, but you might have to go to the deployment if you want to actually deal with, if you think this is the officer instead of this one. It's kind of up to you. Beating the scenario is going to give you a plethora of unique upgrades, which is really cool, and you can switch them around for the next scenario, and that's the basic idea of the game. There's obviously a lot more to it, and everybody has their own unique stuff. This guy over here, this was the one guy that I mainly played as. He actually is more of a sniper. He gets to run, stand, crouch, and prone. This guy, and they seem like they're the same, but they're completely different in how they act, as well as the passive ability and the active ability, and they all have their own kind of ultimate or super ability. And don't forget the additional tactics cards that everybody starts with in the game. There's also some additional tokens and whatnot that will be for different missions. You've got cars over here to show you, and there's some ambush tiles over here. There's just a plethora of stuff, and it comes with 2 additional missions that I didn't actually talk about, but I did play. So let me go back up and tell you what I think about this game. Any other caveats? Okay, so a couple caveats in the game. There's quite a lot of variety, which I didn't mention. I want to go over a couple of these other type of equipment cards. You can give a hero a card back for this one here, which is pretty cool, as well as or you can discard this card to give a hero 2. You can attack with specific weapons, and some of them are going to have range of 1 or 2. Range is pretty simple. 1 means you can hit 1 away from you. 2 is 2 entire spaces away, and each tile has 4 spaces. And 3 is 3. 3 is pretty much almost the entire board. And line of sight works pretty simple. If you can put like a line down and see the unit, you're able to shoot it. If not, you can't. So almost kind of like Warhammer or most other style tactics games, and it works. Not a problem at all. There's a radio, there's shovels, machetes. Everybody has their own unique equipment that works really well for them, and they all function in a different way. And in fact, you need to have all 4 characters really to be a full tactical squad in this game. One alone is going to be more difficult, I would imagine. Now, for my review, which kind of ties into that. When we first played the game, we played as 2 characters in a 2-player game, and then we switched to 4 players in a 2-player game, and the 4-player variant worked much better. Now, I'm not sure if specifically because of the rules are still in the works, and they're kind of adjusting things, if you're supposed to play with all 4 every time, no matter how many players you're playing with, or everybody can play as 1, but nevertheless, when you're playing with 4 players, it doesn't increase the amount of enemies that are spawned, per se, when you get those Fog of War cards, which makes the game a little easier. So that would make me I would suggest to me that the game is supposed to be played with all 4, and they're all very different. When you take wounds, you're going to be able to do less. So you're going to only choose different stances, and you always have to go left from right. Personally, I think it would be better if I could actually choose which stances I lose, but thematically it works because you're not able to run when you're wounded, and you can only walk, and then if you get wounded again, you can only crawl, and so on and so forth. However, with the guy I was playing, which is this guy here, when you lose your first 2 stances, you can only move 1 space or not move at all. And if you lose 3 out of the 4, you can't even move anymore. And that can be very detrimental. However, thematically, it does make sense. The AI in this is a little wonky right now, and basically on how the rules I read it, it's hard to determine how you're supposed to move them. Now, you can kind of basically have a sense of where they should move and actually play them as though you would play the bad guy, and everybody can kind of move the units how they want. Maybe you suggest everybody gets to move A, B, and C, and D, and so on like that. But there's just a couple things that we were kind of confused on as to like line of sight in terms of can you shoot through your own enemy? If you get a whole swarm of enemies, can the guy in the back shoot through all of his guys to hit you? And how close of line of sight? Just little things. But I thought I'd mention them. Otherwise, the rules are pretty worked out, pretty simple, and you understand how to do the scenarios. Your turn flows really well, and you understand how to pick the stances and the tactics cards, as well as how to use the actions based on the equipment you have. The theme definitely resounds in this game. When I picked it up, I had expected a certain thing, and when I played it, I got what I expected, and that's good because I specifically wanted to check this game out. I played their last game, which was really cool. It's like the Asylum style game with the betrayal aspect. Really fun game. This one here is definitely a miniatures game, and if you like miniatures games with the war aspect to it. If you like the Rambo theme, I would say it's slightly mature, I suppose, because you're shooting and killing bad guys. It kind of has that Rambo-esque theme. I could probably see kids playing it as opposed to watching the movies, but just there are certain people who probably wouldn't want their kids to be playing this game, and I want to take that into account, but most of my viewers probably would not have an issue with that. Nevertheless, the game has some great artwork. It has the IP, and the characters are all fleshed out with beautiful artwork. I assume the miniatures will look better. I assume there are going to be miniatures. And the momentum works well. I like the special abilities. Sometimes you feel like you're not getting enough, but really that's kind of working in the theme. So all of the negative things I have do function thematically, but they don't function mechanically like I'd like them to. However, everything that works with the players and the movement and the fog of war, that is all thematically really awesome, as well as functions really well. Moving into the terrain where you can hide yourself and you can possibly take damage because maybe you're sliding in and you cut yourself or whatever, that all works as well very nicely. I like all the different scenarios, and I'm very excited to try out the rest of them as soon as I get the couple little things that I was kind of confused about. And it might be player error as well. You get this big knife for the first player marker, and it's kind of just like overdoing it, but that's also really cool thematically. All the different boards you're able to put down on the game is cool, and there's so many different tiles we didn't even get to show you. I mean, I tried to give you a good idea of them with the ambush tiles and whatnot. They all have their own unique things that they do, and that's cool how it ties in with the game, and basically you feel like you're going through a campaign of Rambo, but yet you can still play any one you want. Anyway, I've talked enough about this. I think you have a good idea if you're interested in this game or not. I'm definitely going to be interested in checking this game out when it's fully done. I'd really like to get myself a copy of it because I think it's going to be a really excellent game. Right now, I'm going to give it's a good game, and it's got a couple things, but otherwise I am excited to see it, and I'm going to be following this campaign closely. What about you?
All I wanted was something to eat. But the man kept pushing, sir.
Well, you did some pushing of your own, John.
They drew first blood, not me.
Look, Johnny. Let me come in and get you the hell out of there.
They drew first blood.
Alright guys, thanks for watching another Unfiltered Gamer Kickstarter board game review. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share. It all helps and we do greatly appreciate it, as well as checking out the game Rambo. It's currently on Kickstarter, and if you're interested in the theme and you like a good strong miniatures game with a cooperative feel against the AI, I think you're going to like this one, and I'm excited to see how it turns out. Also, go ahead and check out unfilteredgamer.com. We got tons of blog posts, giveaways, Kickstarter lists, and more, as well as going to have a big artist page coming out pretty soon here to where designers can check out all the artists that are available to make some art for their games. If not, you can just look at all the pretty pictures. Alright guys, that's all I got for you, and as always, I look forward to seeing you next time.